So for this final installment, I would like to look at what helps, what are the things that you can actually do to help, as well as maybe, having identified difficulties that you may need to find support with. So when a sibling dies, the consequences of the death can endure long after a farewell at the graveside. That's often just the beginning of the journey, and as you walk away from the wake and the funeral, it's like, and the people leave and you go back to the quietness of your life. It's then that it can really hit you when you come out of this altered state of consciousness that I talked about. The reality of living without his or her presence in the world can really hit you in the face, and the loneliness and the distraught feelings are strong. So in terms of what can help around your thinking, first of all, to remember that the initial stages play a lot of tricks with your mind. You feel crazy, you feel that you're not going to be able to do anything anymore, you're not going to be able to do any work. You feel that how you feel and how you think now is never going to change, and every day is going to be like this, and you're never going to be able to live like this. You're living with a huge intensity, and that will, it's like a deep pain that's throb, and the throb will get less intense, and then the throb will actually go, it'll settle down. It'll still be sore to touch, but it'll settle down. So remembering when you feel like that, when you think like that this is not forever. I will feel like myself again. And those positive thoughts, those hopeful thoughts are very important. There is a sense that life will never be the same again, but I will be the same again. And with your feelings, it's very useful to put words on your feelings. Talking to someone is so useful, because what happens is grief mutes us. It's how do you begin to put words on how you're feeling? How do you begin to describe the relationship you had with this amazing person in your life? How do you describe what he or she was like? How do you begin to describe what has been lost for you? Words don't even start to describe that, especially if you're talking to a therapist who never ever met the person. You think, like, how can this help? But it really can. And talking about the approach to the death, and the nature of the death, and the wake and the funeral, all of those details, and the past, present and future, what life was like with the person, and what life is like now, and what life feels like it might be like without her, as I said, that absence of her presence. And what happens when we put language on our experience, when we talk about our experience, is it takes the intensity away, it diffuses the feelings. So you may feel kind of depressed or really anxious or just sad all of the time. You feel really overwhelmed and drowned, or you feel, you know what, I've never dealt with this stuff. I've just put it over to the side, and I know that I've never dealt with it. The words help you to make meaning of it. They give tremendous healing, and they allow you to access some more of the feelings. They allow some more of the sadness to come out, some more of maybe, anger, resentment, the complexity. And that whole old saying, it's better out than in. If you're holding it in there, it's really influencing who you are. It's depressing you, it's making you angry and bitter, it's making you a very unemotional person, or it's making you too emotional, and you spend your life avoiding all of this. But when you begin to narrate the story of your relationship with this person and their death, and how terrible it is to live without them in the world, where you're grieving their life, but you're grieving your life with them as well. If you talk to someone who really receives that, and because not all people are good listeners, make sure you find yourself a good listener. You will notice that what will happen is a lightness and a relief will come. So often when I meet someone who maybe comes for the first time, they'll say to me, you know, I've experienced a death that maybe happened 3 months ago, or maybe happened 10 years ago or 30 years ago, and say, I know that I need to deal with it. There's usually a fear there. You know, they're very nervous coming in. Oh, what is it going to be like to put words on this? And once they start, they're breaking the wall down, and there's a lot of feeling that can come up. And universally at the end of every conversation, the person will say, oh, I just feel lighter, I feel like I can breathe a bit more. And what happens is all of the useless stuff, all of the stuff that you've been holding on to that's not helpful, all of the pain, all of the angst and the torment is let go. And what you're left with is the love and the cherished relationship. So it can be very healing. And in terms of behaviours, wanting to find a sense of purpose is really important. How do you live without this person in your life? Because your fundamental posture is, I don't want to live without her. I don't want my life to be without her. So making meaning of the loss and how to go on despite the sibling having passed away is important. And sometimes doing things in their memory gives that sense of purpose and meaning. It might be some very small thing in your family, you know, on their birthday you let balloons go, or it could be something more public, like the 5K run, or doing something to make a difference in other families' lives. Remembering your loved one is really, really important. Now, it can be too difficult at the start where people, you know, I don't even want to see a photograph of the person because it'll set me off, but actually specific things that serve to keep you in touch with the person is very helpful. Maybe you've pictures all over the house, maybe just little memories of them. And these are, what you don't want to remember is the death. You want to remember their life. So can we think about how this person lived and who the essence of this person was, their human spirit, and that's what we want to remember. I don't want to remember this person in a road traffic accident or lying in a bed very, very, very ill. I want to remember their life. So how do I do that? And also purposefully including the deceased sibling in your ongoing life is a really lovely thing to do. Like, you know, I know people who had their sister's favourite flowers in their wedding bouquet, or maybe named a son or a daughter after the sibling, and that sense of we carry this memory on, which is huge. And another very practical thing that you can do when you're experiencing grief, which often you don't feel like doing but can be a lifesaver, is exercise. Because I talked earlier on about how the body takes the stress. We have the serotonin is gone and the oxytocin, all the feel-good ones are gone, and they're replaced by cortisol and adrenaline, and the stress chemicals surge. And because the grief hits us in such a physical way, attending to the grief in a physical way is really good, because it helps us to get rid of the stress chemicals. So even a 10-minute brisk walk can help to lift your mood for a few hours, and that gloom that you just wake up with all of the time, literally shifting your body will shift some of the stress chemicals, and you'll just feel a little bit perked up. It may not be enough to take away your grief, and it certainly probably won't, but more vigorous regular exercise produces even bigger, longer lasting improvements. There's actually really good evidence that exercise reduces anxiety and helps us to cope with stress. So maybe factoring in a more active experience in the world. As you said, that's not the answer to all your problems, but it can help on a day-to-day basis. And I would leave you with a thought, and this is very backed up by neuroscience research, that yoga is supremely brilliant in the reduction of stress, not just physical but mental stress as well. So if you think about joining a yoga class, you know, online or in time when the world opens back up again, in a studio, yoga is just phenomenal around how we will navigate grief and how we will be resourced up in the world. It helps us at a physical level. Of course, lots of people do yoga for flexibility and stuff, and it really does it. We have something like 30% reduction in stress chemicals after an hour of yoga, so it helps us at the physical level. It helps us at the emotional level as well because of their very controlled breath. It actually really impacts our sadness, our anger, our resentment, and it helps us at that mental level. You know, that lack of concentration, that preoccupation, that obsessive thinking, very, very negative, or you can't get over the thoughts about this person at all or how they died. Yoga is really, really good. So there are lots of things that you can do. There are lots of things that help around, you know, being thoughtful and being remembering in a hopeful way that where I am at the minute is temporary and is not always going to be where I'm going to be. At a feeling level, putting words on your experience and doing that with someone who listens well, particularly important to get a professional if there is complexity, if there are very dark features of the death that cause you a lot of grief and torment. And then in terms of your day-to-day life, some exercise, just getting up and moving your body will move your psychology, will shift the stress chemicals and help you feel normal again and positive. And hopefully this has been useful for you, that there are lots of things that you can do.